Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it.
The sun dipped low over the noble estate, casting long shadows across the manicured lawn as I swept the front steps, my mind elsewhere. The distant sound of piano music drifted through the open windows, mingling with the murmur of conversation as Cecilia's mother entertained her guests inside. It was just another ordinary day, until I found the envelope. I almost missed it. Lying on the edge of the last step, half buried under a stray leaf, the paper was thick and ivory, its edges gilded, as if the invitation had come straight out of a fairy tale. My name was scrawled on the front in an elegant hand, unmistakably Cecilia's. I felt a strange chill as I picked it up, a warning whispering through my thoughts. Why would Cecilia send me a personal invitation? I stood there for a moment, the envelope crinkling slightly between my fingers. Part of me wanted to tear it open right there, but a louder part of me hesitated, my heart beating a little faster. It was as if the paper was pulsing, alive with hidden intent. I knew Cecilia well enough. Her kindness always came with sharp edges. Finally, with a deep breath, I slid my finger under the seal and unfolded the card inside. Angel, you are cordially invited to celebrate my 24th birthday this Saturday evening. It would mean so much to have you there. Best regards, Cecilia. The words were sweet, almost affectionate, but I couldn't ignore the unease tightening my chest. I'd seen Cecilia with her friends, the way she could weave words like honey, only to twist them later like a knife. But an invitation to her party? My mind raced with questions, but one thought kept circling back. Why now? Later that afternoon, as I was setting the dinner table, Cecilia glided into the dining room, dressed in her usual designer elegance, a delicate smile on her lips. She moved with a grace that was almost hypnotic, like a dancer who knew every step was being watched. I looked up, catching her gaze. "Did you get my invitation, Angel?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. Her voice was soft, almost gentle, but there was a glint in her eye that set my nerves on edge. "I did, Miss Cecilia," I replied, carefully keeping my tone neutral. "Thank you for inviting me." Her smile widened, but there was no warmth in it. "Of course, you've been such a part of this household, it wouldn't feel right not to have you there. I've even picked out a dress for you." My breath hitched. "A dress?" "Yes." She took a step closer, her perfume filling the air between us. "I had it made just for you. I'm sure it will look lovely." The way she said it made my stomach twist. She leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want everyone to see how important you are to us." I managed a nod, even though my throat felt tight. I didn't trust her, but there was no way to refuse without risking my job. And maybe, just maybe, I was overthinking it. But as Cecilia turned away, her smile lingering for just a moment too long, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had stepped onto a path I couldn't easily turn back from. The next morning, I found the dress hanging in my small room. It was a deep, garish green, the fabric heavy with sequins that caught the light in a blinding shimmer. It was beautiful in a way, but not at all something I would have chosen for myself. As the days passed, my anxiety grew. I couldn't avoid the whispers among the other staff, their eyes darting away when I caught them staring. "You're going to the party?" Marie, one of the older maids, asked as we polished silverware on the evening before the event. I nodded, unsure of what else to say. "It seems that way." Marie hesitated, then leaned closer, her voice low. "Be careful, Angel. Miss Cecilia, she doesn't do things without a reason." I didn't respond, but I couldn't shake the warning. That night, as I lay awake, the dress draped over the chair beside my bed, I felt a chill settle deep inside me. I knew, somehow, that this invitation was no act of kindness. It was a summons, and Cecilia had plans for me. The night of Cecilia's birthday arrived, and the mansion was ablaze with light. Cars lined the long driveway and laughter echoed from the garden, where lanterns hung from the trees, casting a soft, flickering glow. As I stood at the entrance, I felt the weight of curious eyes on me. Dressed in the green gown Cecilia had chosen, I felt more like a spectacle than a guest. Stepping inside, I was immediately hit by the grandeur of it all. Guests in glamorous attire, crystal glasses clinking, waiters gliding through the crowd with trays of champagne. I wanted to blend into the walls, but the bright green dress made sure I did anything but. I took a hesitant step forward, hoping to find a quiet corner, when a voice rang out. There she is. Cecilia's voice sliced through the chatter, drawing every gaze in my direction. She appeared at the top of the grand staircase, radiant in a silver gown, with a glass raised in her hand. Everyone, please welcome Angel, my wonderful maid, and tonight's special guest. A ripple of laughter spread through the room, sharp and mocking. I felt my cheeks flush, but I forced a smile, knowing it was the only defense I had. Cecilia descended the stairs, her eyes never leaving mine, like a predator stalking its prey. She reached me and slipped her arm through mine, guiding me towards the center of the room. "Isn't she lovely?" she cooed, loud enough for the guests around us to hear. I thought she deserved a night to shine. I glanced around nervously, catching a few smirks, a few raised eyebrows. Some of the guests were whispering, their eyes lingering on the sequins that caught the light too easily. I could hear snippets of their conversations, the cruel undertones thinly veiled behind polite smiles. "Cecilia, I began, my voice trembling, but she cut me off, her nails digging into my arm. "Don't be shy, Angel," she said, her smile never wavering. "Tonight is about celebrating everyone who makes my life so perfect." I swallowed hard, feeling trapped. As she led me through the room, introducing me to her friends, I noticed how she emphasized my role as her maid, highlighting the difference between us. With each introduction, she found a new way to belittle me, her words like velvet knives slicing away at my dignity. "Oh, Angel, you missed a spot on that window last week," she teased to a group, and they laughed obligingly. I forced a laugh too, though the sound felt bitter in my throat. As we approached the dining area, I saw a familiar face. Cassius, Cecilia's older cousin, a lawyer who rarely attended family events. He was leaning against a column, his eyes scanning the room with a cool detachment. When our eyes met, his expression softened and he stepped forward. "Cecilia, must you drag the poor girl around like a trophy?" Cassius said, his voice smooth but firm. "She looks like she's had enough of your games." Cecilia's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, but she quickly recovered. "Oh, don't be such a spoilsport, Cassius. We're just having a bit of fun. Aren't we, Angel?" I nodded, but my heart was pounding. I could see now. This wasn't just about humiliation. This was a test, a game, and Cecilia was waiting for me to crack. But as Cassius's gaze lingered on me, there was something in his eyes that gave me strength. "Fun," he repeated, his tone sharp. "If that's what you call it." Cecilia's grip tightened around my arm before she finally released me, her smile freezing into something more dangerous. "Of course, it's all in good spirits. Now, if you'll excuse us, I have to see to a few other guests." As she walked away, I could feel the room breathe again, the attention shifting elsewhere. I let out a shaky breath, barely able to keep my composure. Cassius took a step closer, lowering his voice. "Are you all right?" "I don't know what she's planning," I whispered, my hands trembling. "But I know it's not good." "Stay close to me tonight," he said softly. "And whatever happens, don't let her see you fall apart. That's what she wants." I nodded, grateful for his kindness. But as I glanced around the room, I saw Cecilia watching us from across the hall, her eyes gleaming with something dark and triumphant. Whatever game she had started, it was far from over, and I was caught right in the middle of it. The party was in full swing, music swelling as guests mingled, glasses clinking and laughter floating through the air. Cecilia's eyes sparkled as she moved around, ensuring she was at the center of every conversation. I tried to stay out of sight, sticking close to the edges of the room, but I could feel her presence, always watching. The dress she had chosen for me clung uncomfortably, a constant reminder of her control over this night. A waiter appeared beside me, offering a drink. I hesitated, but before I could decide, Cecilia materialized out of nowhere, her fingers brushing the rim of the glass. "Oh, Angel, you must try this," she said, her voice dripping with forced sweetness. "It's a vintage champagne, a taste of luxury for you." I accepted the glass, her gaze challenging me to refuse. As I raised it to my lips, I saw the gleam in her eyes, a warning or maybe a dare. I took a small sip, feeling the bubbles burn down my throat. "It's nice," I managed, though I could barely taste it over the nerves tightening my chest. "Isn't it?" Cecilia replied, leaning in closer. "A taste of how the other half lives. But don't get too comfortable. she added, her smile widening as she stepped back. Because it's time for a little surprise. She clapped her hands, and the music died down, the chatter slowly fading as everyone turned their attention to her. Ladies and gentlemen, if I may have your attention, she called out, her voice echoing through the hall. Tonight, I want to share something very special with you all. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach as Cecilia gestured for me to join her at the center of the room. I hesitated, but the eyes of the crowd urged me forward, their curiosity palpable. As I stepped up beside her, she slipped an arm around my shoulders, the weight of it heavy and suffocating. This is Angel, my maid, she began, her tone bright but laced with something darker. She's been with me for quite some time, helping me in ways you all can't imagine. Tonight, I wanted to do something to show my appreciation. There was a murmur of surprise, a few amused chuckles. I could see the confusion on some faces, the anticipation on others. Cecilia's smile was sharp, almost predatory. Angel, why don't you tell everyone about your little side project? I blinked, caught off guard. I don't understand, I stammered, my heart racing. Oh, don't be modest, she said, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. Tell them about how you're the unknown Angel, the mysterious philanthropist, who's been anonymously donating to orphanages and shelters all over the city. The room went silent. I could feel the stares, a mix of shock and disbelief, and suddenly, I understood. Cecilia wasn't planning to humiliate me. She was revealing my secret in the cruelest way possible, turning my charity into a spectacle. She had discovered what I'd worked so hard to keep hidden, and was using it to strip away my dignity, all under the guise of praise. I looked around, seeing the stunned expressions, and then back at Cecilia, whose smile was triumphant. I don't know what you're talking about, I managed to say, trying to hold my ground. Oh, don't be coy, she said, waving a hand. I found the receipts, the donations. It was all you, wasn't it? She turned to the crowd, her tone gleeful. Can you believe it? A maid giving away money she doesn't have. The crowd erupted in whispers, the confusion turning into a wave of murmurs. I could see some of them smirking, others looking impressed, but all eyes were on me, and there was no escape. I thought it was commendable, Cassius suddenly said, stepping forward from the edge of the room. His voice cut through the noise, steady and calm. Generosity doesn't have to be loud to be sincere, Cecilia. Cecilia's smile faltered, her eyes narrowing. Oh please, Cassius, don't ruin the fun, she snapped, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in her gaze. I could see the cracks forming, her plan unraveling as Cassius stepped closer. It's not about fun, Cecilia, he said quietly, looking directly at me. It's about respect, and maybe you should learn a little of it. For a moment, the room was still, the tension thick between us. I could feel my heart pounding, but I wasn't afraid anymore. I was angry. Cecilia wanted to make a show of me, but she had miscalculated. And for the first time that night, I felt like I had a choice in how this would end. The room buzzed with murmurs, a mix of disbelief and curiosity hanging in the air. Cecilia's eyes darted around, trying to regain control of the situation, but Cassius had thrown her off balance. I stood still, every nerve on edge, aware that I was at the center of a storm I hadn't anticipated. My secret was out, and now I had to decide how to face it. Cecilia took a step forward, her smile taut, like a performer struggling to keep the show going. Well, it seems our humble maid has been quite busy, she said, her voice dripping with mock admiration. Tell us, Angel, how did you manage it? Sneaking around, pretending to be someone you're not. I felt the sting of her words, but I held my head high. I never pretended, I said, my voice steady, though my hands trembled. I just chose not to make a spectacle of it. There was a ripple of surprise through the crowd, a few hushed gasps. Cecilia's expression darkened, but before she could respond, a woman's voice cut through the noise. Why did you keep it a secret? It was one of the guests, her tone genuine, curious. I hesitated, glancing around at the faces watching me, waiting for my answer. This wasn't how I wanted this to happen, but maybe it was time. Because it wasn't about recognition, I said, my voice louder now. It was about helping those who needed it. I didn't want thanks, I just wanted to make a difference. A murmur of agreement rippled through the guests, and I saw a few heads nodding, but Cecilia wasn't finished. Oh, how noble, she sneered, stepping closer, her eyes narrowing. But tell me, Angel, where did all that money come from? You couldn't have earned it cleaning houses. Did you steal it? The accusation hung in the air, sharp and cutting. My heart skipped a beat, but I met her gaze, refusing to back down. I inherited it, I said quietly, my words clear. From my grandmother. She left everything to me. Cecilia blinked, clearly taken aback. This wasn't the answer she expected, and for a moment she was speechless. But she quickly recovered, her lips curling into a smirk. How convenient, and yet you still chose to be a maid. Why? I could see what she was trying to do, twist my story into something absurd, something the guests could laugh at. But I wouldn't give her that satisfaction. Because I wanted to stay grounded, I said, surprising even myself with the calm in my voice. Because I needed to understand what it meant to work hard, to earn respect. Unlike some people, I didn't want my wealth to define me. The room went silent, Cecilia's smirk faltering as the weight of my words sank in. She had no witty comeback, no clever retort. For the first time, I saw a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes, and it was then I realized I had shifted the balance. Cassius, who had been watching intently, stepped forward, addressing the guests. I think what Angel has done is remarkable, he said, his voice firm. She chose to use her fortune to help others, quietly, without seeking praise. That's real strength, and it's something we should all respect. A few guests started clapping, and soon the applause spread, filling the room. Cecilia's face tightened, her carefully crafted plan crumbling before her eyes. She had wanted to expose me, to humiliate me, but now she was the one on the edge of ridicule, and she knew it. I glanced at her, expecting to see anger, but there was something else. Fear. As if she realized she had lost control, and with it, the power she so desperately clung to. I stepped back, letting the applause wash over me, but I knew this wasn't over. Cecilia wouldn't let go that easily, and the game was far from finished. The applause faded into a tense, charged silence, the air thick with anticipation. All eyes flicked between Cecilia and me, as if waiting for a showdown in a high-stakes game. Cecilia stood with her cheeks flushed, a rigid smile plastered on her face, but her eyes were sharp, calculating. I knew that look, she wasn't done with me yet. Quite a story, Angel, she said, her voice saccharine but tinged with malice. But it's hard to believe someone with so much wealth would choose to live like, well, a servant. Her words drew uneasy chuckles from the crowd, and she leaned in, sensing the moment was ripe for humiliation. Tell me, what are you really hiding? I refused to flinch, my heart hammering as I considered my response. Before I could gather my thoughts, she gestured to a man in a dark suit who had been lingering near the back of the room. Marcus, a notorious private investigator known for his talent for digging up dirt, stepped forward, a briefcase in hand. My pulse quickened. Cecilia was ready to expose me, and she wasn't holding back. Angel, Cecilia said, her smile widening, I thought it would be fun to learn more about you, so I did a little digging. Turns out, our philanthropist here has a few secrets of her own. The room fell silent, and a chill crept down my spine. Marcus opened his briefcase and produced a stack of papers, his gaze sweeping the crowd with an air of authority. It seems Miss Angel isn't just an anonymous benefactor, he began, his voice smug. She's been involved in some questionable activities, donations funneled through shell companies, funds that vanished without a trace. Quite the scandal. Gasps erupted around the room, and I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. I had been meticulous, guarding my actions carefully, but now it seemed everything was unraveling. I clenched my hands, trying to steady myself, but Cecilia's triumphant expression cut through my resolve like a knife. Looks like you've been playing more than one game, Angel, she said, her voice laced with mock pity. How does it feel to be exposed in front of everyone? I wanted to respond, to defend myself, but my throat tightened, and the words refused to come. Cecilia had me cornered, and she reveled in it. But then, from the corner of the room, a voice rang out, strong and unwavering. Enough, Cecilia. Cassius stepped forward, his icy gaze locked on her. This isn't a court, and you're not a judge. You've had your fun, but it's time we hear the truth, from Angel, not from hired help. Cecilia's eyes narrowed, but Cassius held his ground. He turned to me, his expression softening with encouragement. Tell them, Angel. Whatever this is, we'll listen. We deserve to hear your side. The room leaned in and I took a deep breath, the weight of their scrutiny pressing on me. You want the truth? I began, my voice steadying. Fine. I'm not hiding anything, Cecilia. I don't need to justify my life to you or anyone else. True wealth isn't about appearances or status. It's about the positive contributions we make to the world. I continued, each word gaining strength. For years, I've been working to uplift those in need, using my resources to help others find hope and support. I don't seek recognition. I believe in making a difference quietly. That's my wealth. The crowd was silent, processing my words. Even Cecilia seemed taken aback, her confidence wavering as realization dawned. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about values that transcended material wealth. Tacitus stepped forward, his voice firm yet kind. Angel has shown us what true strength and character look like. Cecilia, perhaps this is a moment for reflection, for you and for your family. Cecilia's facade cracked, her bravado slipping as the truth settled around her. What do you mean? She asked, her voice softer, almost vulnerable. I met her gaze. You've always placed so much value on status and wealth, but look where it's led you, toward cruelty and manipulation. If you choose to embrace kindness instead, you'll find a deeper fulfillment than any party or lavish event could ever provide. As the tension in the room shifted, I saw a glimmer of understanding in Cecilia's eyes. Her shoulders relaxed, and the corners of her mouth turned down in contemplation. Maybe you're right, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I've lost sight of what truly matters. With newfound determination, she took a step back, acknowledging the truth in my words. I want to change. I want to learn. Her voice broke slightly and she turned to the guests, her family included. Can we all do better? Can we commit to kindness and genuine contributions? To my astonishment, her family nodded, murmurs of agreement rippling through the room. It was a small step, but it felt monumental. As the party began to dissolve into conversations filled with hope and newfound purpose, I felt a warmth spread within me. It was a strange twist of fate, a celebration not just of my story but of transformation, redemption, and the promise of a brighter future.